sure you have it on video. Don't actually do anything about it.
Why are they gonna feed them like fish?
I don't know.
I don't know how to read that.
How's everybody doing?
Good. I'm hot.
That was not very enthusiastic. How's everybody doing? Hey, there's people out there. All right, welcome to the Naples Zoo, everybody. My name is Zach. This is Matt. We're two of the reptile keepers here, and we want to welcome you to Alligator Bay and our alligator feeding, sponsored quite appropriately by the Gator Club of Naples and Gator Country 101.9. Now, here in the Bay, we have 17 adult American alligators, and they range in size from our smallest girls, who are about 7 feet long, all the way up to our largest males, who are about 14 feet long. Now, we got a pretty good showing so far, but we do not have 17 alligators yet. Some of them are still off in the bushes and will probably show up over time. But it is very likely that even if they all show up, they're not all going to get fed, and that's okay. Because even though we call this a feeding, these alligators do not rely on us for food the way a lot of the other animals do here at the zoo. And what I mean by that is that this bay is a very natural environment for our alligators. It is loaded with fish and turtles and all the other things that they like to eat. And so we could stop coming out here completely, let them all hunt on their own, and they're not going to miss us at all. But we still come out here every single day. We bring different types of treats like beef and chicken and fish, and we train them. Now it surprises a lot of people that alligators can be trained, but they can be. It's a little bit trickier than training your average Chihuahua puppy, but the same principles still apply. You ask them to do something. If they do it, they get a treat. If they don't do it, they don't get a treat. And over time, they start to do the things that they get treats for more and more often. Now, what Matt is asking the alligators to do right now is nothing. That's a little bit more complicated than it sounds. That doesn't mean they can just do whatever they want. It means that when he walks up and pauses in front of them, they have to do nothing. So they can't head up onto the beach. They can't go bother their neighbor. They have to sit still and wait. Now, if they do that, you'll see that he throws a little treat in the water next to them. If they don't, he moves past them and works with a different alligator. Because we want them to all learn that every time we come out here on the beach, it is their job to line up nicely at the water's edge and wait for us. We cannot make these alligators do anything. But by teaching them that every time they show up at the beach nicely and wait for us, they get food, they're going to start to do that more often, right? And so that means that we can check in on all of our alligators more often, which is good. But it also gets them ready for what comes next, because we will ask them to do more complicated things than just sitting and waiting for us. Now, before we get to the more complicated stuff, we're going to mention our little disclaimer very, very briefly. What Matt is doing is very dangerous. That's pretty obvious, right? Got a couple people laughing, got one head nodding. Okay, good. Under no circumstances should anyone consider doing what you're seeing done here today. American alligators are very dangerous animals. Big male alligators, like some of the boys in the front here, can bite down with close to 3,000 pounds of pressure. That is bone-shattering power. American alligators have some of the strongest jaws of any animal on planet Earth. Now, if this is so dangerous, why are we letting Matt do this, right? Well, simple answer is that we don't like Matt. Yesterday's audience thought that was funnier. Yeah, no, we like Matt. Matt's doing this because he's been trained to do this. Alligators are dangerous animals, and so working with them safely takes training. You need to understand how they think and how they behave. You need to know how quickly they can move and what direction. You need to understand their body language. And you need to know each alligator. Every single one of these alligators has its own name and its own training plan. And they're all worked with as individuals. And so it takes a lot of time out here on the beach just to learn how to identify each alligator and how to work with that individual animal as well. Now the bigger question though, is that if this is dangerous, and these alligators don't need the food that we're giving to them, Why are we doing this at all? Well, it goes back to what I said before. This is a big exhibit. A lot of places for these alligators to hide. And even though we could let them hunt on their own and do pretty much whatever they want, it's still our job to take care of them. And so if we can call them up onto the beach, ask them to come up out of the water one by one, teach them to stand up, lie down, open and close their mouths, all the different things we're trying to do, that gives us a better chance to take care of them. Alligators can live to be more than 70 years old. And if you have 17 animals all living together for 70 years, eventually something's going to happen. One will get sick or injured, and you're going to have to get that animal away from the others, or at least get it out of the water to take a good look at it. And all of the training that we do helps us work more closely with them, which means that we can give them better care and a better life, and that's important. But even though we go through the training to work with these alligators safely, and even though we are out here taking care of them and feeding them every single day, you will not find us feeding alligators out in the wild. And that's because that's illegal. In fact, it's illegal for anyone to feed wild alligators in the state of Florida, with no exception. And that's for a very important reason, and that reason is safety. Now yeah, what Matt is doing is dangerous, and that's pretty obvious. But what's less obvious is that feeding alligators isn't just dangerous for the person doing the feeding. It's dangerous for everybody that alligator will ever see from that day on. See, even though alligators are big, strong predators, they have a very strong natural fear of people, and they will avoid people whenever possible. Are these alligators trying to avoid people? No, they are coming straight towards us, and that's because we've been feeding them. The alligator that Matt's working with right now is named Freckles. Freckles is about 11 feet long, weighs a neighborhood of 550 to 600 pounds. Freckles has a brain the size of a walnut. Now hold on a minute. He knows his name. He sits and stays better than my dogs do. These animals are smarter than most people give them credit for. But alligators do not understand the difference between the food in your hand and your hand itself. And in the wild, that can create a big problem. Let's say you're out on an airboat tour in the Everglades. The captain's throwing fish to the alligators to bring them in closer. Seems pretty harmless, right? Alligator gets a free treat, you get better pictures, captain gets a bigger tip, everybody wins. But remember, those alligators do not understand that somebody's picking up fish and throwing it to them. They think you're just a boat full of fish. So from that day on, anytime those alligators see people, the only thing they're thinking is, ooh, fish. And they're going to swim over and investigate. Can anybody guess how alligators investigate things? By biting them. Yeah. You don't want to be investigated by an alligator. That's going to hurt. Now, very quickly they're going to realize you're not made out of fish. The vast majority of unprovoked alligator attacks are one bite. That's it. Alligator takes one bite, realizes it's made a mistake, turns around and goes the opposite direction. But with as much power as these animals have, sometimes one bite is all it takes. The person ends up in the hospital or worse, and alligators get a very bad reputation as a result. And even though they are dangerous animals, they're also important animals. And it is important for us to learn how to live alongside them safely. Because when we're talking about big, dangerous animals, we're usually talking about predators. And every predator has an important job to do, and that job is to eat other animals. When you lose predators from the places they live, the animals that they eat start to overpopulate. Those animals run out of their food and start to spread disease, and the whole ecosystem comes to a crashing halt. No alligators means no Everglades. It's as simple as that. And if we lose the Everglades, we lose a lot of other important things too. We lose commercial and recreational fishing, we lose bird and other wildlife habitat, we lose natural water filtration. If you live in South Florida, your drinking water comes from the Everglades. How many people like having clean drinking water? Yeah, I should probably see a few more hands than that, but that's a good start, I guess. We need big, dangerous predators if we want to survive on this planet. Now, we're very lucky to have alligators in Florida, not just because they're important to the environment and because they attract tourists, but because we almost lost them. We have so many alligators that a lot of us forget that what we're looking at is an endangered species success story. And the early 1900s, alligators were hunted for their skin until they were almost wiped off the face of the earth. By the 1950s, there were very few American alligators left. But people stepped in. We started alligator farms, and that took the pressure off the wild population, and we protected them in the wild where they belong. Not only were the American alligators one of the first animals ever put on the endangered species list, they were one of the first to come off. Today in the state of Florida, we have close to 2 million wild American alligators, and that's something to be really proud of, because that means that every time you see an alligator, whether it's 12 inches or 12 feet, whether it's in the middle of the zoo or the middle of the golf course, that animal is living proof that when we work together, we can protect the world around us. And that's something that's worth getting excited about. Now, one of the easiest ways to protect the world around you is something you guys have already done today. You support the zoo. By supporting accredited zoos and aquariums, you help conservation projects with animals all over the world. And that's why on behalf of Matt, myself, and all of the Gators, we want to thank you guys for coming out and making all of this possible today. Now, if you do have any alligator questions, please stick around. We're very happy to answer them for you. Just raise your hand. We'll answer them from across the bay. But otherwise, take off. Enjoy the rest of your day here at the zoo, and have a fantastic afternoon. Thanks again, everybody. Have a great day. All right. Now, are there any alligator questions? Yes, down here. Is the reason why they're afraid of us because we almost made them extinct? That's a good question. It's probably a difficult one to answer specifically, but it probably didn't help our cause. Yeah. Yes, Sam. Why are they important? Okay, so alligators are what we call a keystone species, and that means that other animals and habitats rely on their presence. So